Welcome to Starbound Valor HFY. The galaxy had many voices, but only one place where all of them were heard together. That place was the Grand Council Hall, a massive structure floating in deep space. On this day, the hall was full. Representatives from hundreds of species sat in silence as the central screen lit up. The message was short, cold, and final. Humans were no longer welcome in the Galactic Alliance. The decision had already been made. No debate. No delay. The words echoed across the chamber and then spread through every star system like a quiet shockwave. Many expected anger. Some expected threats. A few even prepared for war. Humans were known for strong emotions and stubborn pride. But none of that happened. There were no angry broadcasts from Earth. No human fleets moved into attack positions. No warnings were sent. Instead, the human delegates stood up slowly, bowed their heads, and left the council hall without a single word. Cameras followed them, waiting for something dramatic, but there was nothing. Just silence and calm footsteps fading into the distance. Across the galaxy, reactions were mixed. Some species felt confused. Others felt relieved. A few even celebrated openly. They believed humans were dangerous, unpredictable, and too ambitious. Without humans, many thought the galaxy would finally be stable. News channels spoke of a peaceful future. Traders smiled, thinking routes would be safer. Politicians praised themselves for making a brave decision. No one noticed that the humans did not argue. No one asked why they accepted exile so easily. Human ships began to leave shared systems. They did not rush. They did not damage stations or steal resources. One by one, they departed in neat formations, lights dim, weapons powered down. At human colonies, families packed quietly. Cities shut down in an orderly way. Power grids were turned off cleanly. Research stations sent final automated reports and then went silent. To outside observers, it looked almost polite, as if humanity was apologizing for existing. Within months, humans were gone from all Alliance space. Their flags were removed. Their seats were empty. At first, it felt strange, but not frightening. Life went on. In fact, many felt lighter. Council meetings were shorter. Arguments were fewer. Some species joked that the galaxy could finally breathe. There were even festivals held on a few core worlds to celebrate a new era without humans. Then the silence deepened. Human space, once full of signals, became quiet. Communication arrays pointed toward Earth received nothing. No music. No data. No random chatter. Trade beacons went dark. Patrol drones sent to human borders returned with empty scans. Human worlds were still there, planets spinning as always, but there were no ships in orbit. No traffic. No signs of life. It was as if an entire species had stepped behind a closed door and locked it. At first, this caused little concern. Many assumed humans were simply adjusting, rebuilding somewhere else, or sulking in isolation. But as weeks turned into months, the silence remained perfect. Not a single human signal leaked into known space. Even their old emergency beacons stayed quiet. Some experts found this strange. Humans were known for constant communication. Silence was never their way. A few junior analysts began asking questions. Where did the human fleets go? Why were no deep space sensors picking up their movement? Why had no smugglers or pirates seen a single human ship? These questions were quietly ignored. The council had already moved on. The decision was made. The chapter was closed. Then small things began to happen. A trade convoy vanished near an old human-protected route. Pirates appeared where they had not dared to go before. A research outpost reported strange readings from deep space, then went offline. None of these events seemed connected. The galaxy was vast, and accidents happened. Still, a few older commanders felt uneasy. They remembered how humans used to patrol silently, how threats rarely reached the core worlds when humans were around. One historian said something during a private meeting that no one laughed at. He said no one feared humans when they left. They feared them only after silence. The words lingered in the room. Silence, after all, was not emptiness. Silence could mean waiting. Scouts were sent closer to former human space. They reported clean systems. No debris. No ruins. Just darkness. Human cities were intact but empty, like homes left in a hurry yet carefully locked. Even automated defenses were powered down. It looked peaceful, but wrong. A species did not vanish like this by accident. Across the galaxy, celebration slowly faded into unease. The absence of humans began to feel heavy, like missing gravity. No one could say exactly what was wrong, but everyone felt it. The humans had not left in anger. They had not left in fear. They had left with purpose. And now the galaxy was left with a question that grew louder every day, whispered in council halls, military bases, and lonely starships drifting through quiet space. Where did humans go? After the humans disappeared, the galaxy entered what many leaders called the Calm Age. Without human voices in the council, decisions were made faster and with less argument. Trade lanes reopened that had once been restricted by human safety rules. Borders relaxed. Military budgets were cut. News networks spoke daily about progress and unity. Many species believed the humans had been the cause of tension, and now that cause was gone. Ships traveled with lighter escorts, merchants took greater risks, and politicians smiled more often. To most of the galaxy, the silence from human space felt like proof that the decision had been right. The universe looked the same, but people felt different, relaxed and confident, certain that nothing important had been lost. In the outer systems, stations renamed halls and plazas that once honored human explorers. Their history was quietly archived, rarely discussed, slowly forgotten. For a time, nothing bad happened, and that made the belief stronger that peace was real and permanent. Years passed, and the story repeated itself everywhere. The galaxy was finally safe, finally mature, finally free from human influence. Then small problems began to appear, so small that few paid attention. A mining colony near the rim reported delays in supply ships. A patrol failed to arrive on schedule. A distress signal flickered for a few seconds and then vanished. Each event was explained away as error or coincidence. Space was dangerous, after all. But there were patterns that only a few noticed. The missing patrol had once relied on human navigation software. The delayed supply route had been mapped by human explorers decades earlier. The distress signal came from a system humans used to guard quietly, without praise or payment. In council meetings, junior officers raised concerns, but senior leaders dismissed them. They reminded everyone that humans were gone and irrelevant. The galaxy was strong enough to handle itself. Confidence replaced caution, and caution had once been humanity's greatest gift. On the trade routes, pirates grew bolder. They tested defenses, striking quickly and vanishing before help arrived. Merchants complained, but insurers still believed the risk was low. In distant sectors, old enemies began to stir. Ancient machines, once held in check, activated forgotten relays. Predatory species pushed beyond borders that had been stable for generations. Local forces responded, but they were slow and divided. Humans had once shared intelligence freely, connecting distant systems like threads in a web. Without them, information moved poorly, arriving too late or not at all. Still, most of the galaxy refused to worry. Peace had lasted long enough to feel normal, and normal was comforting. On a core world, a small celebration marked the anniversary of the human departure. Speakers praised unity and progress. No one mentioned that the celebration required heavy security for the first time. In another system, a research team explored an abandoned human outpost. They found it clean and orderly, logs carefully sealed, warnings recorded but encrypted. The team laughed about human paranoia and moved on, never unlocking the files. Slowly, quietly, the cost of silence began to rise. Border worlds reported strange shadows at the edge of sensor range. Deep space probes stopped transmitting. Rescue ships were sent and never returned. Each loss was isolated, each explanation reasonable on its own. Together, they formed a picture that few wanted to see. An old fleet commander finally spoke during a closed council session. He said that when humans were present, problems rarely reached the council because humans solved them first. They did not ask for permission. They did not wait for votes. They acted. His words were recorded and archived, not broadcast. Admitting regret was dangerous. Admitting dependence was worse. As time passed, trade slowed instead of growing. Insurance rates climbed. Military forces stretched thin, guarding more space with fewer ships. Species that once relied on human engineers found their systems failing more often. Power grids flickered. Navigation errors increased. Repairs took longer. Humans had maintained much of the galaxy quietly, fixing problems before they became disasters. Without them, everything still worked, but only barely. The comm age began to feel fragile, like thin glass under growing pressure. Some worlds started whispering about reaching out to humanity, but no one knew how. Every channel aimed at human space returned nothing. Even automated probes vanished when they crossed the old borders. Human absence was no longer just silence. It was a wall. Fear replaced relief, slowly and unevenly, spreading from the edges inward. Still, there was no panic, only unease, a sense that something important was missing and that the galaxy had mistaken quiet for safety. The false peace held, but it creaked under its own weight, and deep in the darkness beyond known space, forces long kept at bay began to move, sensing that the Watchers were gone. The first true crack in the comm appeared without warning and without mercy. It began in a strong system, one that had never feared attack. The Karth Union had vast fleets, layered defenses, and generations of military pride. When their outer listening stations detected incoming objects, commanders assumed it was a routine anomaly. The signals were weak and scattered, nothing that matched known enemy profiles. Standard procedure was followed, slowly and confidently. By the time the truth became clear, it was already too late. The objects were not ships in the usual sense. They were weapons, old and adaptive, moving with purpose and intelligence. Karth defense grids activated, but response times lagged. Coordination failed. Systems that had once synced perfectly hesitated, waiting for confirmations that never arrived. Within hours, entire orbital platforms were gone. The Karth Union had never lost a world in its recorded history. That record ended in silence. Emergency signals burst across nearby space, desperate and unfiltered. No allied fleets arrived in time. No rapid response task force appeared from the shadows. For the first time in generations, a major power fell alone. Across the galaxy, the news spread like cold fire. Panic was still denied, but fear was no longer hidden. Analysts searched for reasons, blaming software flaws, command errors, or unlucky timing. No one said the obvious truth aloud. The humans would have been there. In the council chambers, the mood changed. Voices rose. Accusations flew. Emergency sessions replaced calm debates. When the question finally surfaced, it came from a junior delegate who had nothing left to lose. Where were the humans? The room went quiet. No one answered because no one knew. Investigations followed. Scout fleets were sent along old human routes, paths once considered the safest in known space. They found ruins, drifting wreckage, and broken signals. Evidence of battles no one had reported. Evidence of defense. Evidence of sacrifice. It became clear that humans had been fighting something long before their exile, something they had never shared with the Council. The realization struck hard. Humans had not been a source of chaos. They had been a shield. On the edges of former human territory, sensors picked up something unexpected. A structure, ancient and still powered, hidden near a dead star. It was not alien in design. It was human. A defense platform, massive and quiet, its weapons still charged. Automated systems responded to scans with warnings in simple human language, repeating a single message. Do not proceed. Threat contained. The scouts retreated, shaken. The message was dated. It was years old. That meant humans had been holding the line alone while the rest of the galaxy argued politics. More discoveries followed. Old human satellites activated as foreign ships approached, driving threats away with precision strikes before going dark again. These systems had not failed. They had been abandoned on purpose, left behind as a last line of protection. Someone in the Council finally said what many feared. If these defenses were still active, then something worse was beyond them. And if humans had left, then whatever they were preparing for was far greater than the Alliance had ever imagined. The Karth disaster was no longer seen as an isolated attack. Similar patterns appeared elsewhere. Systems once stabilized by human presence collapsed quickly under pressure. Enemies moved with confidence, testing boundaries, learning responses. The galaxy was reacting, but always too late. Humans had once responded early, striking threats before they grew bold. Without that pressure, danger flourished. Fear became policy. Fleets were recalled to protect core worlds, leaving borders exposed. Smaller species begged for help that could not arrive. In quiet offices, officials reviewed archived human proposals, old warnings dismissed as exaggeration. They read about deep space anomalies, hostile intelligence, and cascading failures. The documents ended with recommendations never approved. The humans had been preparing for war while everyone else planned peace. The final proof came from a damaged probe that limped back from human space. Its memory was corrupted, but one image remained. A distant fleet, human in design but altered, larger, heavier, built for survival, not diplomacy. The timestamp showed recent activity. Humans were not gone. They were elsewhere. Watching. Preparing. And they were not returning, not yet. The Council understood too late that the absence of humans was not the problem. It was the warning. Humanity had left peacefully because it believed the galaxy would not survive what was coming. And now, as systems burned and defenses failed, regret spread through every world that had once celebrated their silence. As fear replaced denial, the galaxy began to look backward for answers. Records that had once been ignored were reopened. Old mission logs, trade reports, and maintenance files were pulled from archives and reviewed with new eyes. Patterns emerged slowly, then all at once. Humans had been everywhere, not as conquerors or rulers, but as workers in the background. They repaired jump gates that were not theirs. They stabilized failing stars with quiet engineering projects. They escorted trade convoys without demanding payment. Many species realized with shame that they had accepted human help as something natural, something that would always be there. No monuments had been built for those efforts. No public praise had followed. Humans had acted, solved problems, and moved on. Now the galaxy saw what life looked like without that constant, invisible effort. In system after system, infrastructure began to fail in small but dangerous ways. Navigation beacons drifted out of alignment. Defense grids responded slower than expected. Energy networks overheated or shut down without warning. Investigators traced many of these systems back to human-built designs. The designs were strong but required regular care humans had once provided freely. Without that maintenance, decay set in. It was not sabotage. It was neglect. A truth that hurt more than any attack. In the outer sectors, commanders reported another unsettling discovery. Humans had mapped regions of space others avoided, places filled with unstable physics and hostile entities. Those maps were marked with warnings and notes, clear and detailed. The Council had ignored them, believing humans exaggerated danger. Now ships entering those regions vanished or returned damaged. It became clear that humans had stood between the galaxy and the unknown, choosing to face it rather than burden others with fear. The deeper the research went, the worse the picture became. Humans had created early warning networks beyond alliance borders, detecting threats long before they reached settled space. Those networks were now offline, either shut down deliberately or destroyed by forces pressing inward. The galaxy was blind. In military archives, analysts found human battle reports describing engagements that had never been shared publicly. Small fleets fighting overwhelming odds, delaying enemies, sealing breaches, and then erasing evidence. Humans had hidden these battles to avoid panic. They had believed the galaxy was not ready to know. That belief had cost them trust. It had also cost the galaxy its protectors. As this understanding spread, the tone of leadership changed. Pride faded. Confidence collapsed. Some worlds demanded an official apology be drafted, ready for the moment contact with humanity was restored. Others argued it was already too late. Without humans coordinating defense and sharing intelligence, every species acted alone, duplicating effort, wasting time. The strength of the alliance had always depended on connection, and humans had been the strongest connectors of all. In a quiet research station near the old human border, a team finally decrypted one of the sealed human logs. The message was simple, recorded by a tired voice. It said humans did not fear exile. They feared staying while untrusted. They feared fighting for a galaxy that refused to listen. The log ended with a warning. When humanity left, it was not abandoning the galaxy. It was preparing to survive what others would not. That message spread quickly, no longer hidden. Panic followed, but also clarity. Humans had not been reckless. They had been careful. Their silence was not weakness. It was discipline. Reports soon confirmed that many threats now advancing had once been contained at the edge of human space. With those lines gone, danger flowed freely. The galaxy realized that humans had never dominated through force. They had dominated through responsibility. They took on burdens others avoided and never spoke of them. Now those burdens were shared, and most species were not ready to carry them. As more systems failed, leaders began to speak openly of regret. Not regret for banishing humans, but regret for never understanding them. Humanity had not demanded power. It had earned trust quietly, then lost it loudly. The absence of humans was no longer just a missing presence. It was a lesson written in collapsing orbits and burning skies. The galaxy finally understood what humans truly were. Not allies of convenience. Not unpredictable troublemakers. They were the unseen foundation that had kept everything standing. And with that foundation gone, the structure of peace began to crumble in full view of everyone who had once believed they were better off alone. The moment the truth settled in, the nightmare truly began. It did not arrive as one great disaster, but as many smaller ones striking at the same time. Borders failed across multiple regions. Ancient enemies that had slept for centuries awakened as if answering a silent signal. Autonomous war machines drifted out of hidden space, their logic cold and precise, attacking infrastructure instead of armies. Space creatures once kept away from trade lanes moved freely, tearing apart civilian ships. The Alliance tried to respond, but coordination collapsed under pressure. Fleets were scattered, commanders argued over priorities, and messages arrived too late to matter. Worlds that had never known fear now watched their skies burn. Evacuation orders were issued, then cancelled, then issued again as plans failed. In the past, humans would have taken control of chaos like this, organizing defense, sealing weak points, and striking threats before panic spread. Now there was only reaction, never prevention. On the council floor, leaders shouted over one another, each defending their own systems first. Unity cracked. Smaller species were abandoned as core worlds pulled fleets inward. Refugee ships crowded jump points, many destroyed before they could escape. Sensors detected massive energy spikes in regions once marked by human warning symbols. Those symbols had been ignored. Now they were understood too late. One by one, emergency beacons went dark. Analysts finally admitted that the galaxy was facing multiple threats at once, threats that fed on disorder. These enemies were not random. They were testing, adapting, learning from every failed defense. Humans had warned about this kind of enemy in archived reports, describing intelligence that waited for weakness, for division. The Council had called it fear-driven fiction. Now it was reality. A desperate plan formed to rebuild early warning systems, but the knowledge was incomplete. Human engineers had designed much of that network, and without them, reconstruction was slow and flawed. False alarms drained resources while real threats slipped through. A council envoy suggested sending a message of apology to humanity, but no channel reached them. Attempts to breach former human space ended in failure. Automated defenses activated just long enough to force retreat, never attacking, never responding to hails. It felt intentional, as if humans were watching and choosing silence. As losses mounted, morale collapsed. Soldiers fought bravely but without hope. Civilians lost faith in leaders who had promised endless peace. On several worlds, riots broke out when food convoys failed to arrive. Power grids shut down as systems overloaded. The calm age officially ended, replaced by survival mode. In a remote system, an old human-built station reactivated on its own. It broadcast a warning across open channels in simple language. Threat escalation detected. Civilian sectors compromised. Evacuation advised. No assistance forthcoming. The message repeated and then shut off. It was not a promise. It was not comfort. It was information, The same cold honesty humans had always offered. Some worlds listened and survived. Others ignored it and were lost. The galaxy began to split between those who adapted and those who clung to old pride. The idea of control vanished. There was only endurance. Military leaders studied human tactics from old simulations, copying what they could. Strike fast. Protect civilians. Do not waste force. Even imperfect imitation helped, proving how effective human methods had been. Still, it was not enough. The scale of the threat was too large. Entire regions were declared lost to slow the spread. This decision haunted the Council. They had once exiled one species to protect the many. Now they sacrificed many to protect a few. The irony was bitter and unavoidable. In whispered conversations, officials admitted the truth. Humanity had not been expelled because it was dangerous. It had been expelled because it made others feel small. Humans acted when others debated. They solved problems others avoided. That had bred resentment. Now that resentment had become regret. As the nightmare deepened, one final realization spread through every surviving world. Humans had not left to punish the galaxy. They had left to prepare themselves. They had chosen survival over approval. And somewhere beyond known space, while the galaxy burned and struggled to hold together, humanity was facing the darkness on its own terms, waiting for the moment when silence would no longer be enough. When survival replaced pride, the galaxy made a choice it had avoided for too long. It began to search for humanity. Not to command, not to judge, but to understand and, if possible, to ask for help. The Council authorized deep-range expeditions toward former human space, using every map, every old log, every fragment of data humans had left behind. These missions were not announced with speeches or hope. They were quiet, almost ashamed. Ships traveled with lights low and weapons cold, following routes humans once marked as safe. Many never returned. Those that did came back with stories that chilled even hardened commanders. Human borders were not empty. They were guarded by machines that did not chase or threaten. They watched. When foreign ships crossed invisible lines, systems shut down without damage, engines locked, navigation frozen. A clear message followed in calm human language, advising retreat. It was not hostility. It was control. The message always ended the same way. Do not follow. You are not prepared. This only increased the fear. Humanity had not collapsed. It had fortified. In abandoned systems closer to Alliance space, search teams found more clues. Human cities sealed behind layered defenses. Archives locked but intact. Medical bays stocked. Shipyards empty but functional. It looked like a species that had stepped away, not fled. Investigators began to piece together timelines. Humans had started withdrawing long before exile was announced. They had moved key populations, resources, and fleets beyond known charts. Exile had only accelerated a plan already in motion. This realization hit the Council hard. Humanity had expected rejection. It had planned for it. In a distant outpost, a recovery team finally accessed a human data core damaged but readable. The logs described escalating encounters with an unknown force pressing inward from deep space. Not one enemy, but many, coordinated by something patient and intelligent. Humans recorded strategies, losses, and predictions. The final entries were calm. They stated that the galaxy would not unite in time. Political fear would delay action. Humanity would be blamed for alarmism. So humanity chose another path. It would leave, grow stronger, and face the threat alone if necessary. The log ended with a simple line. Silence buys time. Time saves lives. As this information spread, panic turned into determination. The Council ordered a focused search for human fleet locations. Using old human propulsion math and probability models, analysts guessed where humanity might hide. The likely places were dangerous regions no one else would enter. Black nebulae. Collapsing star clusters. Areas where sensors failed. These were places humans had once explored without complaint. Scout ships pushed deeper than ever before. Many were lost, but one returned with something extraordinary. A glimpse of movement beyond a radiation veil. Massive structures. Human in shape, but larger, darker, layered with armor and energy fields. A fleet not built for display, but for war. The scouts did not approach. They recorded and retreated, knowing they had found proof. Humanity was alive. Humanity was ready. The Council faced a new problem: how to speak to a species that had chosen silence as survival. Repeated messages were sent, stripped of politics and demands. They carried only truth. The galaxy was failing. The threats were spreading. The absence of humans was being felt everywhere. Weeks passed with no reply. Some leaders argued that humanity had abandoned them. Others believed the silence was a test. Meanwhile, conditions worsened. Worlds fell faster. Resources dwindled. In desperation, a final message was crafted, not by politicians, but by civilians, engineers, and soldiers from many species. It thanked humanity. It admitted fear. It asked for guidance, not rescue. The message was broadcast across open space, repeated again and again. Then the galaxy waited. Days later, something changed. Human border defenses adjusted. Not opening, not closing, but shifting. A narrow corridor appeared, safe for travel, marked clearly. No message accompanied it. No invitation. Just a path. A single council ship entered, carrying no weapons, only data and witnesses. It traveled deep into the corridor, expecting destruction at any moment. None came. At the far end, a signal appeared. Human. Controlled. Alive. The search had worked. Humanity had been found. But as the council ship drifted forward, those aboard understood something important. Humanity had not been hiding. It had been standing between the galaxy and extinction. And now, after silence, it was allowing the galaxy to see just how close the darkness truly was. The council ship moved slowly through the corridor, surrounded by forces it could not measure or understand. Sensors showed human vessels everywhere, yet none blocked the path. They floated in formation, massive and silent, their hulls dark and scarred, marked by long wars fought far from any witness. Inside the council ship, no one spoke. Every crew member felt small, not because the humans were threatening, but because they were calm. Calm like something that had already faced the worst and survived. At the end of the corridor, the ship was guided into a vast open space where a single human structure waited. It was not a station in the old sense. It was a command fortress, layered with defenses and surrounded by support ships moving with quiet precision. The council ship was locked in place, gently, without force. A signal opened, and for the first time in many cycles, a human voice was heard. It was steady, controlled, and simple. Welcome. Remain calm. No harm intended. The delegates were escorted inside, not by soldiers, but by automated systems and human officers without visible weapons. They did not look angry. They looked tired. Older. Hardened. Humanity had changed. In a chamber overlooking deep space, the delegates finally met the Human Command Council. There were fewer humans than expected, but each carried authority earned through survival. The lead human spoke without hostility. He said humanity had watched the galaxy carefully since exile. They had seen the collapse, the fear, the loss. They had not celebrated it. They had expected it. He explained that when humans left peacefully, it was not surrender. It was strategy. The galaxy had refused to listen when humans warned of the coming threats. Staying would have meant endless debate while the danger grew. Leaving allowed humanity to prepare without interference. The delegates tried to apologize, but the human leader stopped them. He said apologies did not change reality. Only action did. He showed them recordings. Human fleets holding back massive enemy forces in deep space. Human engineers sealing dimensional fractures. Human soldiers dying in battles no one would ever record. Humanity had paid the price of silence already. While the galaxy argued about politics, humans had fought for time. The delegates asked why humans did not warn them more clearly. The answer was simple. Humans had warned them. Many times. The warnings were ignored because they were uncomfortable. Humanity learned a lesson then. Being right was not enough. Trust mattered more. And trust had been broken. Humanity had chosen to survive on its own terms. The Human Council explained that they had no intention of returning to rule or command the galaxy. They did not want seats, votes, or titles. They wanted one thing only: unity without denial. If the galaxy wished to survive, it would have to accept hard truths and act without delay. Humans would not save everyone. They would not sacrifice themselves for those who refused to learn. The delegates listened in silence as human analysts explained the true scale of the threat. It was not a single enemy but a convergence, drawn by weakness and division. The more the galaxy fractured, the stronger the threat became. Humanity had adapted by becoming unified, efficient, and quiet. No wasted movement. No wasted lives. That discipline had kept them alive. One delegate asked if humans would help now. The answer came after a long pause. The human leader said humanity would not return as saviors. They would return as partners, but only if the galaxy accepted human leadership in matters of survival. No politics. No delays. No denial. Some delegates hesitated. Others nodded immediately. Outside the chamber, human fleets shifted formation, responding to distant threats with perfect timing. The delegates realized something important. Humanity had not been waiting for permission. It had been waiting for understanding. The meeting ended without celebration. The council ship was released and guided back toward Alliance space, carrying data, strategies, and a clear warning. Humanity would help, but only if the galaxy changed. As the ship departed, a final human message was sent across open channels. It was heard by every world still listening. Humanity is not angry. Humanity is not vengeful. Humanity is prepared. Those who wish to stand and fight may follow our lead. Those who refuse should prepare to stand alone. The message ended there. Across the galaxy, leaders felt fear, relief, and something new: respect. Humans had left peacefully because they believed conflict with the galaxy would weaken everyone. Their absence had been a test, a harsh one. Now that test was over. Humanity had stepped out of the shadows, not to reclaim what was lost, but to decide who was worthy to face the future. Humanity did not return with speeches or banners. It returned with movement. Across Alliance space, human fleets appeared at critical points without warning, slipping out of deep space like controlled shadows. They did not announce themselves. They did not ask permission. They acted. Enemy forces that had pushed freely for months suddenly met resistance they could not understand. Human ships moved with purpose, striking weak points, cutting supply lines, disabling command units, then vanishing before counterattacks formed. It was not chaos. It was order imposed on disorder. Alliance sensors struggled to keep up as battles ended almost as soon as they began. Worlds that had been days from collapse felt pressure lift suddenly, like a hand removed from their throats. Civilians watched skies clear without ever seeing their saviors. Reports followed, confused and amazed. Threats that had taken entire fleets to slow were neutralized by small human task groups working in perfect coordination. The galaxy quickly understood that this was not rescue. It was correction. Humanity was fixing a system that had been allowed to break. In council space, leaders tried to regain control, but control was no longer the goal. Survival was. Human command nodes began sharing data selectively, giving Alliance forces just enough information to hold lines and evacuate civilians. They did not share everything. They did not slow down to explain. They expected others to keep up. Some commanders complained about the lack of transparency, but those complaints faded as results spoke louder than pride. Entire sectors stabilized within weeks. Not because the enemies were gone, but because they were being contained, pushed back, confused. Humans targeted not only fleets but communication hubs, breeding grounds, and hidden factories. They attacked the roots, not the branches. This was war fought by planners, not heroes. On the ground, Alliance soldiers noticed changes too. Human advisors arrived, not to lead from the front, but to reorganize defenses, simplify commands, and remove unnecessary steps. Old protocols were discarded without debate. If something did not work, it was replaced immediately. Some officers resisted and were ignored. Others adapted and survived. Morale shifted. Fear did not vanish, but it became focused. There was finally a plan, even if it was not fully shared. Civilians began to speak of humans again, not as myths or memories, but as a presence felt through safety returning to the edges. Yet humanity remained distant. They did not occupy worlds. They did not demand resources. When Alliance fleets tried to follow human ships into deeper engagements, they were redirected or blocked. A simple message repeated through secure channels. "Hold your line. We will handle this." The meaning was clear. There were battles the galaxy was not ready to fight. In one critical system, an Alliance world faced total destruction as a massive enemy formation emerged from folded space. Local defenses failed within minutes. Evacuation ships were overwhelmed. Just as collapse seemed certain, human forces arrived in force for the first time. Not a small strike group, but a full battle formation. The fight was brutal and short. Human ships absorbed punishment that would have shattered older designs, returning fire with precision that erased enemy cores. The enemy fleet broke and fled, chased into deep space. The system was saved. Alliance observers recorded the battle in full. When reviewed, one detail stood out. Humans took losses without hesitation to protect civilian evacuation routes. They did not retreat. They adjusted. The message spread fast. Humanity had not returned as saviors, but it had not abandoned compassion. It simply refused to be controlled by it. After the battle, the human fleet did not stay. It left behind supplies, repair drones, and a single data package containing defensive upgrades. No demands. No ceremony. Just preparation. Across the galaxy, perceptions changed. Fear turned into something harder and heavier. Accountability. Worlds realized that humans were not here to fix mistakes forever. They were buying time, the same way they always had. Time to learn. Time to change. Some worlds used that time well, reforming command structures, sharing intelligence, accepting uncomfortable truths. Others clung to old habits, arguing over credit and authority. Those worlds received less help. Not out of punishment, but efficiency. Humanity did not waste effort where it would not last. In a rare broadcast, a human commander addressed Alliance forces directly. His words were calm and direct. He said humanity would continue to act where necessary, but the galaxy must stand on its own legs again. Humans would not shield it forever. The threats were adaptive. Victory would require unity, speed, and honesty. These were not human values alone. They were survival values. As operations continued, a pattern became clear. Humanity was not reclaiming its old place. It was reshaping the battlefield so the galaxy could survive without becoming what it feared. Humans led by example, not command. They showed what discipline looked like, what preparation meant, what silence could hide. And as enemy movements slowed and panic eased, a final truth settled across the stars. Humanity had returned not to be loved or praised, but because if it did not act, no one else could. The nightmare had not ended. But for the first time since humans left peacefully, the galaxy was no longer facing it alone. The cost of humanity's return was clear from the start. It was not a gift freely given, nor a rescue with strings attached. It was a price paid in silence, discipline, and unyielding demand for change. Humanity's presence brought hope, but also hard truths that no world wanted to hear. The galaxy could no longer pretend that old ways worked. Politics and pride had to give way to survival and honesty. In the days following the first major battles with human support, council meetings changed tone completely. Debates about trade and influence were replaced with urgent discussions about strategy and unity. The humans insisted on one rule: no lies, no delays, no excuses. If the galaxy wanted their help, it had to be ready to act on their advice without question. Some leaders resisted. They clung to traditions, power, and the belief that their species could solve problems alone. They saw humans as arrogant, harsh, and unwilling to share control. But every delay cost lives and territory. The price of resistance grew higher each day. Gradually, the majority accepted the new order. Intelligence sharing became mandatory. Military commands were streamlined. Diplomatic channels focused on cooperation against threats instead of rivalry. The humans did not seek leadership in the old sense. They did not want votes or seats in the council. Their leadership was practical and direct. They demanded action. Their word carried weight because they backed it with force and knowledge. This created tension. Some alliance members whispered that humanity was becoming a silent empire. Others argued that this was necessary for survival. Public opinion shifted as well. Citizens who had once feared or resented humans began to see them as protectors. Yet even respect was complicated by distance. Humans rarely appeared outside their fleets and bases. They kept to themselves, rarely engaging in politics or trade. Their messages were brief and businesslike. No celebrations. No fanfare. Just instructions and reports. The galaxy was learning that survival was not about glory but discipline. Behind the scenes, human engineers worked tirelessly to upgrade Alliance defenses. They redesigned starship hulls, improved energy shields, and developed faster response algorithms. Their technology was shared selectively, often under strict conditions. Some worlds accepted the help gratefully. Others complained that humans were hoarding secrets. Yet no one could deny the results. Systems that had been vulnerable now stood stronger. Fleets moved faster and coordinated better. Civilians felt safer, even as the galaxy remained under threat. One unexpected change was in cultural perception. Stories about humanity shifted from myth and fear to respect and curiosity. Artists painted human heroes, musicians composed ballads about silent guardians, and schools taught about the price humans paid in exile and return. But the truth was more complicated. Humans did not seek to be heroes. They acted out of necessity and survival instinct. Their silence had been a shield, and their return a warning. The hardest lesson came in moments of crisis when humans demanded sacrifices that many Alliance members found unacceptable. Entire colonies were evacuated, resources redirected, and political ambitions postponed. The humans reminded the galaxy that survival was not a right, but a challenge. They expected discipline, focus, and honesty. Those who failed to meet these standards were left behind or given limited support. This caused resentment in some sectors, but humanity's methods were effective. Slowly, a new form of governance emerged. It was not a return to old alliances or empires, but a coalition built on trust, shared purpose, and ruthless efficiency. The humans did not lead by decree but by example and necessity. They showed that survival required letting go of pride and embracing hard realities. As the galaxy adjusted, some began to wonder what the future held. Would humanity's role grow into something permanent? Would the old powers fade away? The answers remained unclear, but one thing was certain. The age of easy peace was over. In its place stood a new era defined by vigilance, cooperation, and readiness. The humans had returned not to rule, but to save what could be saved. And they demanded that the galaxy change or perish. In quiet moments, leaders admitted a painful truth. Exiling humanity had been a mistake born of fear and misunderstanding. The galaxy had paid dearly for that mistake. Now, with humans back and threats looming, there was a fragile hope that lessons had been learned. The price had been high, but the cost of failure was higher. The final message from humanity echoed across space, reminding everyone what was at stake. You banished us once. We will not be ignored again. It was a warning and a promise. The galaxy listened, knowing that survival depended on hearing both. The galaxy was forever changed by humanity's return, but the true test had only just begun. Old rivalries and grudges did not vanish overnight. Even as fleets coordinated and intelligence flowed more freely, distrust lingered beneath the surface. Many species still remembered the exile, the silence, and the absence that had nearly doomed them all. Some whispered that humanity had returned not out of kindness, but because it was ready to reclaim dominance by force if necessary. Others believed the humans had grown stronger but also colder, hardened by years alone against enemies the rest of the galaxy had never faced. Trust had to be rebuilt slowly, if it was to be rebuilt at all. The humans themselves made no effort to pretend otherwise. They were not here to make friends or win popularity. Their focus was clear and unwavering: prepare the galaxy to survive what was coming. As the days passed, human fleets continued to strike with precision, pushing enemies back step by step. Their tactics were unlike anything the Alliance had seen before: silent, efficient, and without waste. Entire enemy networks were dismantled before they could respond. When asked why their methods were so ruthless, human commanders answered simply, "Mercy comes after victory, not before it." This caused discomfort but also forced the Alliance to reconsider its own approaches to war and defense. Diplomacy was no longer a shield for weakness. It was a tool to be used wisely, backed by strength and readiness. Behind the front lines, human engineers and scientists worked in quiet collaboration with their Alliance counterparts. Together, they rebuilt damaged infrastructure and developed new technology designed to detect and counter the mysterious threats that had driven humanity into exile. Sensors were extended deeper into unknown space. Defensive grids were enhanced with adaptive AI capable of responding faster than any species command could. Medical technologies improved survival rates on the battlefield and in devastated worlds. These advances gave hope but also reminded everyone how far behind the galaxy had fallen without human guidance. Cultural exchanges slowly increased, though humans remained guarded about their history and motivations. Some Alliance historians managed to piece together fragments of humanity's past struggles, gaining respect for the sacrifices made in silence. Schools began teaching about the importance of unity and discipline, lessons learned too late. Yet, the scars of exile were still visible. Many humans bore the weight of years spent fighting alone. They had survived through sheer will and a relentless drive to protect, even when abandoned. Their leaders spoke openly about the cost: lost lives, broken families, and the loneliness of watching a galaxy reject them. This honesty deepened respect and began to heal old wounds. However, challenges remained. Political factions within the Alliance debated how much power to grant humanity. Some feared that reliance on human strength would lead to loss of autonomy or new forms of control. Others argued that without humans, the galaxy was doomed to fall apart. These debates were intense and often divisive. Humans rarely participated in these political battles. They preferred to lead by action, expecting results instead of votes. Their quiet confidence unsettled some but inspired others. As threats continued to evolve, the Alliance realized that survival required more than weapons and defenses. It required change at every level: governance, culture, and trust. Humans pushed for transparency and accountability, demanding that secrets be shared and weaknesses exposed. This was painful for many species accustomed to secrecy and pride, but it was necessary. Slowly, the galaxy began to transform. Old grudges softened as new partnerships formed. Fleets trained together. Scientists collaborated openly. Civilians learned to see humanity not as a conqueror or stranger, but as a partner forged in hardship. The turning point came when a massive enemy force attempted to breach the inner systems once more. This time, the Alliance fought as one, coordinated by humans but fought by all. The battle was fierce, pushing every species to its limit. Yet, for the first time in generations, victory was achieved not by isolated heroics but through unity and discipline. As the last enemy ship fell, cheers echoed across countless worlds. Hope, once fragile, grew stronger. Still, humanity reminded everyone that this victory was temporary. The war was far from over. The dark forces beyond known space were patient and relentless. Preparation had to continue without pause. The final message from Human Command was clear and resolute: survival was a shared responsibility. No one could face the coming darkness alone. The galaxy had been tested by exile, silence, and loss. Now it was being tested again by unity, action, and trust. The future remained uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, the galaxy faced it together. Humanity had returned not to reclaim what was lost, but to build something new, an alliance forged in the fires of hardship and hope, ready to stand against the shadows that threatened all life.